It's all over the news, Dorothy, Frank says, his once authoritative voice now weakened by illness and regret. The hospital room's fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across his gaunt face, making him look every one of his 78 years. They're calling you the whistleblower who saved thousands of lives. I glance at the muted television where my face fills the screen, footage from this morning's interview. The Chiron reads, acclaimed documentary filmmaker exposes decades of corporate pollution. I didn't do it to be on television, Dad. I reply, my fingers nervously adjusting the blood pressure monitor on my arm, a constant companion since my collapse 6 months ago. The machine beeps steadily, a rhythm that's become the soundtrack to my life. I did it because it was the truth. Frank attempts to sit up, wincing with the effort. In his hospital gown, he seems diminished, nothing like the towering legal giant who had dismissed my entire career as a childish hobby for decades. The truth, he repeats, turning the word over like an unfamiliar object. You were always obsessed with the truth, even as a little girl. Remember when you told Mrs. Peterson her new haircut looked like a wet poodle? Despite everything, I smile. I was 7, and now you're 54, and still telling uncomfortable truths. He reaches for my hand, his skin paper thin against mine. I kept something for you all these years. From beneath his pillow, he pulls out a worn manila envelope, pushing it toward me with trembling fingers. Inside is a letter I wrote at 17, my first passionate declaration about using film to expose environmental wrongdoing. My own awkward teenage handwriting stares back at me, full of the idealism I never abandoned. You kept this? My voice catches. It was the first time you stood up to me, told me money wasn't everything, he says, his eyes filling with tears. I should have listened then. 6 months ago, I never could have imagined this moment, my father apologizing, me sitting beside his hospital bed, both of us broken and healing in different ways. How did we get here? How did a birthday dinner spiral into the biggest environmental scandal the country had ever seen? I close my eyes, remembering where it all began. Helen's birthday dinner, 6 months earlier. The crystal wine glasses clinked as Richard raised his for yet another toast to success. And to those who know how to achieve it, he announced, his perfect white smile gleaming in our father's meticulously decorated dining room. I'm Dorothy Howard, and at 54 years old, I was about to experience one of the most humiliating dinners of my adult life again. Speaking of success, my father Frank interjected, swirling his expensive Bordeaux in his glass, the tremor in his hand barely noticeable. Despite being confined to a wheelchair since his stroke last year, he still commanded the room. Richard just closed another multi-million-dollar merger for Carlton Industries, third one this quarter. He beamed at my brother with the pride I'd never seen directed at me in all my decades of filmmaking. I pushed my untouched salmon around the plate, already knowing where this conversation was heading. The familiar knot formed in my stomach, the same one I'd felt at family gatherings since I was a teenager. My blood pressure medication sat heavy in my purse, a reminder of last month's doctor's warning about stress management. Across the table, my mother Helen, the woman we were supposedly celebrating tonight on her 75th birthday, shot me a sympathetic glance. After 50 years of marriage to Frank, she'd perfected the art of silent support. And what about you, Dorothy? Richard's wife Carolyn asked, genuine interest in her voice. She was the newest addition to our family, and at 51, closer to my age than Richard's other ex-wives had been. I heard your documentary about factory farming got nominated for an environmental award. That's wonderful. Before I could answer, Richard let out a snort, the same dismissive sound he'd been making about my work since I picked up my first camera at 16. Oh right, the one about sad chickens. Must be riveting stuff. Actually, I straightened my spine, feeling the familiar tension headache beginning at the base of my skull. It exposed systematic animal cruelty and regulatory corruption. It's being considered for the Greenfield Prize. Considered for what? My father interrupted, setting down his wine glass with a sharp clink. Another participation trophy? When are you going to grow up and get a real job, Dorothy? Gah. The words echoed painfully, reminding me of every family dinner over the past 30 years. I was in my 50s, with a respected career and multiple awards, yet in this house, I would always be the disappointing child who chose cameras over courtrooms. Documentary filmmaking is a real job, I said, my voice stronger than I felt. I've been doing it for 25 years. I'm working on something bigger now, something that could actually make a difference. Could what? Richard laughed, looking around the table for support, the same way he had when we were children, and he'd mock my earnest teenage idealism. Win you tens of dollars instead of just once? Richard, Carolyn whispered, placing a hand on his arm. There was something in her expression, concern, perhaps even disapproval, that I hadn't noticed before. Remember when she wanted to be a journalist in college? Richard continued, addressing our father as if I weren't there. Thank God she didn't pursue that dead-end career. The laughter that followed felt like acid on my skin. Even my mother's weak attempt at changing the subject couldn't drown it out. I'm investigating corporate environmental crimes, I blurted out, desperate to be taken seriously just once. Major companies. Serious violations. People need to know the truth. The silence that followed lasted exactly 3 seconds before my father set down his wine glass with a sharp clink. Corporate crimes? He leaned forward, his amusement morphing into something darker. The room suddenly felt colder. You mean harassing legitimate businesses with your amateur camera work and conspiracy theories? They're not theories when you have evidence, I shot back, immediately regretting my words as I saw his expression change. The throbbing in my temples intensified. Evidence? Richard's lawyer instincts kicked in, his entire demeanor shifting from mocking brother to legal predator in an instant. What exactly are you implying, little sister? A memory flashed through my mind. Richard at 12, standing over my broken science project, saying with the same tone, what exactly are you going to do about it? Some things never change. I'm not implying anything, I said, pushing my chair back, feeling a dizzying rush of heat to my face. I'm stating facts, and soon everyone else will see them too. Listen to me very carefully. My father's voice dropped to that dangerous quiet tone I remembered from childhood, the voice that had silenced even my most passionate arguments about injustice. You're embarrassing yourself. More importantly, you're embarrassing this family. It's time you stopped playing at being a filmmaker and found something productive to do with your life. Frank, my mother finally spoke up, her voice soft but firm. Perhaps we should. No, Helen, she needs to hear this. He turned back to me, his face flushed with the same righteous anger I'd seen whenever anyone challenged his authority. Your brother made partner at 30. At your age, he's on track to take over my entire firm. He has a beautiful home, a respectable career, 3 successful children. And what do you have? A camera and delusions of grandeur. The room began to spin slightly, my heart pounding too fast. No, I thought, fumbling in my purse for my medication. But my anger overwhelmed my caution. I stood up so quickly my water glass toppled, spreading across the pristine white tablecloth like a slow-motion disaster. What I have, I said, my voice shaking with a rage that had been building for decades, is integrity and a story that's going to make you wish you'd taken me seriously. Sit down, my father commanded, as if I were still a child. You're making a scene. No, I'm making a documentary, and trust me, you'll want to watch this one. I grabbed my bag and headed for the door, ignoring my mother's calls to come back. As I reached for the handle, Richard's voice carried from the dining room. Always so dramatic. No wonder nobody takes her seriously. The door slammed behind me with a satisfying bang. Outside, the cool evening air hit my flushed face, and I leaned against my car, suddenly dizzy. My heart was racing, my vision blurring at the edges. Bria, I told myself. Just Bria. But the pressure in my chest only increased. I fumbled with my phone, trying to call Patricia, but the screen kept wavering in and out of focus. The last thing I remember was sliding down against my car door, the ground rushing up to meet me as the world went black. Hospital, flashback, white ceiling, antiseptic smell, beeping monitors. You're lucky, Ms. Howard, the doctor is saying, her voice floating somewhere above me. The hypertensive crisis could have been much worse. Your blood pressure was dangerously high. I try to focus on her face, but my thoughts are scattered. What happened? You collapsed in your parents' driveway. Your mother found you and called an ambulance. She checks something on her clipboard. Have you been taking your medication regularly? Sometimes I forget, I admit. The truth is more complicated. Health insurance for freelance documentary filmmakers isn't great, and my medication is expensive. Well, you can't afford to forget anymore. Her voice softens. Ms. Howard, you're 54. This kind of stress could lead to stroke, heart attack, exactly what happened to your father last year. The comparison to my father hits harder than any medical warning could. You need to make some lifestyle changes. Reduce stress, regular exercise, better diet. She pauses. Is there something specific causing you unusual stress lately? I almost laugh. Where to begin? The decades of familial disapproval? The constant financial instability? Or maybe the fact that I've spent 6 months secretly investigating Carlton Industries, the company my brother represents and, as I recently discovered, my father partially owns, for dumping toxic chemicals into residential water supplies? Nothing unusual, I lie. As the doctor continues with her recommendations, my gaze drifts to the window. In the next building, I can see the oncology ward, where a young mother cradles her bald child. Something about the image penetrates my medication haze mind, bringing clarity. That could be one of the families from the Carlton case, one of the clusters of rare childhood cancers I've been documenting near their facilities. In that moment, lying in a hospital bed being told to reduce stress, I make a decision that will only increase it. I'm going forward with the investigation, no matter what it costs me. My health, my family relationships, everything pales compared to what those families have lost. My life might be half over, but maybe it's not too late to make it count for something. Patricia's apartment, 1 week later. You should see your face right now, Patricia says, sliding a cup of herbal tea across her kitchen counter to me. You've got that look. What look? I ask, though I know exactly what she means. Patricia and I have been friends since film school 30 years ago. She went on to become a respected journalist while I chose documentaries, but we've remained each other's strongest supporters. The one that says you're about to do something either brilliant or suicidal. She leans forward, elbows on the granite. Her silver-streaked hair falls across her face as she studies me. Maybe both. Does your doctor know you're working on this instead of resting? What my doctor doesn't know won't hurt her, I mutter, pulling out my laptop. No, but it might hurt you. She gestures to the blood pressure monitor I now wear daily. Dorothy, you literally collapsed a week ago. And that was my wake-up call. My fingers fly across the keyboard as I pull up my research files. Carlton Industries has been dumping toxic waste in residential areas for years. I have proof, but that's just the surface. And your father's law firm represents them, Patricia finishes, understanding dawning on her face. Dorothy, are you sure you want to look at this? At our age, family becomes more important, not less. The subtle reminder of our advancing years stings, but I turn the screen toward her anyway. These are internal emails from their environmental compliance department. 3 deaths from rare cancers in the last year alone, all covered up, all in neighborhoods where people can't afford to fight back. Patricia's journalist instincts kick in as she scans the documents, momentarily forgetting her concerns. How did you get these? Remember Marcus from college? The computer science major who had a crush on you? He works in their IT department now. He's been helping me gather evidence for months. This is dynamite, Patricia whispers, but you'll need more than just documents. You'll need faces, stories, expert testimony. That's why I called you. I take a deep breath, feeling the familiar pressure building in my chest. I discreetly check my monitor, 140 by 95. Higher than it should be, but not dangerous yet. I need your contacts. Anyone who might be willing to go on record. Patricia studies me for a long moment, then nods. There's someone you need to meet, Michael Price. He broke the story on that pharmaceutical scandal last year. If anyone knows how to handle something this big, it's him. As she reaches for her phone, I suddenly remember something. Patricia, there's one more thing. My brother's wife, Carolyn, she works in accounting at Carlton. At the dinner, before I collapsed. She seemed interested in my work, almost supportive. You think she knows something? I don't know. But she's the only one in my family who's ever shown any genuine interest in what I do. Patricia's expression turns serious. Be careful. Family complications make everything messier. She pauses. Speaking of which, how's your mother taking all this? The question catches me off guard. In the whirlwind of the past week, I've barely spoken to Helen, despite her daily concern texts. She left 3 messages on my machine yesterday, I admit. She's worried, wants me to come over for tea, and I've been avoiding her. I fidget with my teacup. If I see her, she'll try to reconcile me with Dad and Richard. She always does, keeps the peace at all costs. Maybe, Patricia says carefully, but she's 75, Dorothy. And she found you unconscious in their driveway. That's got to change a person's perspective. The guilt hits me hard. My mother has always been caught between my father's domineering presence and my stubborn resistance. For decades, I've judged her for not standing up to him more, for not defending me. But what if, all this time, she's been fighting battles I never saw? I'll call her, I promise. After I meet with Michael. Downtown Cafe, 2 days later. Your technical skills are solid, Michael says, closing my laptop after reviewing my preliminary footage. His lined face and gray hair give him an air of gravitas that comes with age and experience. At 63, he's what I hope to become, a documentarian whose work has actually changed policies and saved lives. But you're playing it too safe. Where's the anger? I'm plenty angry, I reply, taking a sip of my decaf coffee. Even caffeine is on my restricted list now. Then show it. He leans forward, eyes intense. These aren't just numbers on a spreadsheet. These are real people being poisoned in their homes while your brother's law firm helps cover it up. I flinch at the mention of Richard. I want to focus on Carlton Industries, not my family. Michael leans back, studying me. Sometimes the personal angle is what makes a story unforgettable. Why are you really doing this, Dorothy? Because it's wrong, I say automatically, the same answer I've given for 25 years whenever anyone questioned my choice of difficult, underpaid projects. Try again. I stare out the window, watching people hurry past, most younger than me, all with places to go, people who respect them. I think about my father's dismissive laugh, Richard's condescending smirk, the same expressions they've worn since I was a teenager with my first camera. Because nobody thinks I can, I finally admit. Better, but still not there. Tell me why the audience should care. The words begin to flow, decades of frustration finding voice. Because while companies like Carlton Industries poison communities, they're protected by powerful law firms who make sure they never face consequences. Because my own brother. I stop, emotion threatening to choke me. Go on. Because my own brother sits in board meetings knowing what they're doing, and he doesn't care. Because my father calls me a failure while he profits from their crimes. My voice breaks. Because somebody needs to expose the truth, and at my age, I've realized nobody else will do it for me. Michael smiles for the first time. Now that's a story worth telling. He pulls out a business card. I have a contact at the EPA who's been building a case against Carlton for years. She's been looking for a platform. Call this number tomorrow. As I reach for the card, he holds onto it. But understand something. Once you start down this road, there's no turning back. Your family will never forgive you. The weight of his warning settles heavy on my shoulders. At 25, I might have charged ahead without consideration. At 54, with a heart condition and the increasing awareness of time's finite nature, I understand exactly what I'd be sacrificing. They'll have to get in line, I say, taking the card. But inside, a small voice whispers, is this really how you want to spend your remaining years? Alone? Helen's house the next day. My mother's house, technically my parents' house, but in my mind, it's always been hers, smells of cinnamon and lemon polish, just as it has for 50 years. She opens the door before I can knock, as if she's been watching for me. Dorothy, she says, relief flooding her face. She's smaller than I remember, more fragile, the lines around her eyes deeper. When did she get so old? When did we both? She embraces me, and I feel the slight tremble in her hands. I've been so worried. How are you feeling? The doctor said, I'm fine, Mom. I cut her off, following her into the kitchen. The medication is working. Good, good. She busies herself with the tea kettle, her movements precise and practiced. A former high school English teacher, Helen Howard has always found comfort in order and routine. Your father's at therapy today. For his stroke recovery, she adds unnecessarily. I nod, taking a seat at the kitchen table where I've sat through thousands of conversations, from childhood homework discussions to teenage rebellions to adult disagreements. Mom, about the dinner last week. No need to discuss it, she says quickly, setting out delicate teacups, her good china, I notice. Families disagree. It happens. This is more than a disagreement. I take a deep breath. I'm investigating Carlton Industries for environmental crimes. Serious ones. The teacup she's holding clatters against its saucer. Dorothy, please. Your father's health is fragile. Another confrontation could. People are dying, Mom. Children are getting cancer because of chemicals Carlton is dumping into their water. And Dad's firm, Richard, they're helping cover it up. She sits down heavily across from me. You don't understand. Your father built that firm from nothing. His own father was a janitor. Did you know that? He worked night shifts to put your father through law school. I hadn't known. My father never discussed his childhood, presenting himself as if he'd sprung fully formed into success and prosperity. He started with nothing, she continues, her voice softening. Everything he did to make sure you and Richard would never know that kind of struggle. By defending companies that poison people, by building something that would last. For a moment, there's a flash of something I rarely see in my mother, anger. You think it's so simple? Black and white? Your father made compromises, yes. But he believed he was doing the right thing for his family. And what about you, Mom? What compromises did you make? She looks away, her hands fidgeting with her wedding ring. Different times, Dorothy. I chose to support your father's career over my own ambitions. That was my choice. Was it really a choice? Or was it what was expected of women in your generation? Her eyes meet mine, suddenly sharp. Don't patronize me, Dorothy. I knew exactly what I was giving up and what I was gaining. Just as you've made your choices. The comment stings, bringing forth my deepest insecurity, that I've sacrificed a normal life, marriage, children, for a career that even now struggles for legitimacy in my family's eyes. I found some of your old journals, she says, changing the subject as she rises to pour the tea. From when you were in college. Your film ideas, interview notes. Would you like them? I've been organizing things lately. The careful way she says it sends a chill through me. Organizing? Why? Is Dad worse than you're telling me? She sighs, sitting back down. No, but at our age, one becomes aware of time. I don't want to leave a mess for you children to sort through when I'm gone. The thought of my mother's mortality, something I've been avoiding, hits me hard. Whatever happens with Carlton, with the documentary, my time with her is limited. Precious. Mom, I say carefully, if you knew something bad was happening, something harmful, would you want to know the truth? Even if it hurt. She's quiet for a long moment, stirring her tea thoughtfully. When I was teaching, I had a student, a bright girl, senior year. She came to me with a plagiarized paper. Top student, heading to Yale. She looks up at me. I could have ignored it. Many teachers would have. But I reported her. What happened? She lost her Yale acceptance. Her parents were furious. Called for my job. A small smile touches her lips. But the next year, she wrote me a letter. Said it was the most important lesson she'd ever learned. She went to a state school, worked her way up honestly. Now she's a judge. She reaches across the table, taking my hand. The truth has a cost, Dorothy. But lies cost more in the end. I squeeze her hand, surprised by the strength in her frail fingers. Is that why you kept all my old film notes? You believed in my work, even when Dad didn't? I've always believed in you. Her eyes fill with tears. I just didn't always have the courage to say it aloud. As I leave my mother's house, I feel both heavier and lighter. My phone buzzes. Michael's EPA contact, Margaret, confirming our meeting tomorrow. I think about canceling, about walking away from all of it. But my mother's words echo in my mind. Truth has a cost, but lies cost more in the end. I send back a confirmation. Whatever happens next, I won't be facing it entirely alone. Margaret's office, Environmental Protection Agency. Margaret Matthews' office feels smaller than it looks, cramped with filing cabinets and stacks of documents that reach toward the ceiling. At 58, she has the tired but determined look of someone who's spent decades fighting uphill battles. She closes the door behind us with a soft click. Everything I'm about to show you is public record, she says, pulling out a thick folder, but nobody's connected the dots yet. I set up my camera as she spreads documents across her desk, my hands steadier than they've been in weeks. Something about being back in documentary mode, in the pursuit of truth, calms my nerves in a way medication can't. Carlton Industries has facilities in 12 states. She begins, her voice clinical, but with an undercurrent of controlled rage. In each location, we've documented increased rates of rare cancers, birth defects, respiratory issues. But every time we get close to proving causation, the evidence disappears. Or the witnesses back out. I finish. Margaret's fingers trace a map marked with red dots. Your brother's firm handles most of their litigation. They're very good at what they do. My camera whirs quietly as it captures her methodically laying out 20 years of environmental violations, settlements, and suspicious coincidences. I think of Richard, who once wanted to be an environmental lawyer in college, before her father convinced him corporate law was more practical. When did he become the person who defends the indefensible? Last month, a whistleblower came forward. Margaret continues, former plant manager. He had documentation, samples, everything we needed. The day before his deposition. She pauses, shuffling through papers. What happened? Car accident. Single vehicle. No witnesses. The implications hang heavy in the air. My phone buzzes. A text from Richard. Dad's hosting a dinner for Carlton's CEO next week. Time to bury the hatchet. Come. I ignore it as Margaret pulls out more files. 3 hours later, I have enough footage to make any corporate lawyer nervous. As I pack up my equipment, Margaret grabs my arm. There's something else off the record. I set my camera down. Your father's firm. They're not just representing Carlton, they're shareholders, major ones. My stomach drops. How major? Enough that if Carlton goes down, your family goes with them. The revelation shouldn't surprise me, but it does. It's one thing to defend a client. It's another to profit directly from their crimes. As I drive away from the EPA offices, my mind races with implications. This isn't just about exposing Carlton anymore. It's about exposing my own family's complicity. I pull over, suddenly lightheaded. My monitor shows my blood pressure spiking again. I take my medication, breathing deeply as I wait for it to take effect. On the sidewalk nearby, a mother pushes a stroller, her child laughing in the sunlight. An ordinary moment, the kind Carlton's actions are stealing from families in contaminated communities. I think about my own childlessness, not entirely by choice, but a result of prioritizing my career, of waiting too long, of a brief marriage in my 30s that ended when my husband wanted children and I wasn't ready. Now, at 54, that path is close to me. But maybe there's still a way to create a legacy, to protect children I'll never have. My phone buzzes again. This time it's Carolyn, my brother's wife. Need to talk. About Carlton. Call me. Park bench the next day. Carolyn sits beside me on a bench overlooking the city lake, her hands clutching a coffee cup so tightly her knuckles are white. At 51, she's still striking, intelligent eyes, careful posture, but today there's a vulnerability to her I've never seen before. Richard doesn't know I'm here, she says quietly. He'd be furious if he knew. Knew what? She looks around nervously before speaking. I work in accounting at Carlton. Last week, I found something in the books. Payments to shell companies, Millions of dollars. When I asked Richard about it, she swallows hard. He told me to forget I saw anything, said it was better not to know. How long have you been with Carlton? I ask, resisting the urge to immediately start recording. 3 years. After my cancer went into remission, I needed to work again. Richard arranged it. She touches her stomach instinctively, a habit I've noticed before but never understood. The doctor said I couldn't have children after the treatments. But then, last year, her eyes fill with tears. The twins were a miracle, but now I wonder if they are punishment. What do you mean? I live less than a mile from one of Carlton's facilities, Dorothy. The same chemicals they're dumping, they're linked to the same type of cancer I had. Her voice breaks. What if it comes back? What if it affects my girls? For the first time, I see Carolyn not as Richard's wife, but as a mother terrified for her children, a survivor afraid of recurrence. I need proof, Carolyn. I know. She slides a USB drive across the bench between us. Be careful with this. People who ask too many questions about Carlton tend to disappear. I look at her, really look at her, and see the fear beneath her carefully maintained exterior. Why are you doing this? You're risking everything. She's quiet for a moment, watching a family with young children feed the ducks at the lake's edge. When I was diagnosed, I had to face the possibility that I might not be here to see my daughters grow up. It changes you, confronting your mortality. She turns to me, her eyes suddenly intense. I saw how they dismissed your work at Helen's birthday dinner. But I watched your documentary on factory farming after that. It was powerful. You give voice to those who don't have one. She looks down at her hands. My daughters are 14. I want them to grow up in a world where the truth matters. Where people like Richard and your father don't always get to decide what counts as acceptable damage. As Carolyn walks away, her words echo in my mind. Unacceptable damage. Is that how my family sees it? How many lives are an acceptable sacrifice for profit and prestige? Back home, I plug in the USB drive with trembling fingers. Financial records, internal memos, board meeting minutes. Enough to prove systematic fraud and environmental violations going back decades. And there it is, my father's name, not just as legal counsel, but as a board member. And Richard's name on documents authorizing the cover-up of contamination reports. My phone buzzes. Richard, Dad insists you come to dinner next week. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. As I type my response, an email notification pops up from an anonymous address. The subject line makes my blood run cold. Carlton Industries. The message contains only an address and a time. Tomorrow, 3 p.m. Come alone. I call Patricia immediately. It could be a trap, she warns. Or it could be the smoking gun. At least let me come with you. No, I say, thinking of the whistleblower's convenient accident. I need you to be my insurance policy. If I don't call you by 4 o'clock tomorrow, release everything we have to every major news outlet. Dorothy, promise me you'll be careful. Your heart. I'll bring my medication, I assure her, though we both know that might not be enough if things go wrong. At 54, with hypertension, I'm not exactly in prime condition for cloak and dagger operations. I don't like this, Patricia sighs. This isn't some college project. These people play for keeps. So do I reply, looking at the USB drive glowing softly on my desk, then at Richard's text about the dinner. Don't worry, I type back to him. I'll be there. Wouldn't miss it for the world. But first, I have an appointment with a mysterious source. Abandoned office building next day. The address leads me to an abandoned office building on the outskirts of town. My footsteps echo through the empty lobby as I check my phone. 2:57 p.m. Hello? My voice bounces off bare walls. I got your email. A man's voice crackles through the old intercom system. Third floor. Room 312. Every instinct screams at me to turn back as I climb the stairs, camera clutched to my chest, prescription bottle rattling in my pocket with each step. I pause on the second floor landing, catching my breath. You're too old for this, a voice in my head whispers. Leave it to the younger journalists. But then I think of Carolyn's twins, of all the children in those contaminated neighborhoods and continue climbing. The third floor is dark except for one lit office at the end of the hall. A man sits behind a desk, his face hidden in shadow. As I approach, I can see he's older than me, perhaps in his 70s, with the lined face of someone who's carried a burden far too long. Close the door, he says. I do, then position myself near the exit. Who are you? Someone who knows what Carlton Industries is really hiding. He leans forward, light revealing tired eyes that remind me, uncomfortably, of my father's. And it's much worse than toxic waste. I'm recording this conversation, I warn. He smiles grimly. Good. Someone needs to document the truth. He slides a thick envelope across the desk. These are shipping manifests from the past 5 years. Carlton isn't just dumping waste, they're importing it from countries where disposal regulations don't exist. I flip through the documents, my hands shaking partly from adrenaline, partly from the physical strain of the situation. They're making money on both ends. Billions. Your brother's latest merger. It's with a Chinese disposal company. They're expanding the operation. My camera whirs as I photograph each page. Why are you showing me this? Why now? Because my grandson died last month. Rare form of cancer, 3 years old. His voice cracks with an emotion I understand all too well, grief mixed with rage. I've worked for Carlton for 30 years, kept their secrets. Not anymore. Not after Bobby. His words hit me like a physical blow. This man has been part of the machine that caused suffering just like my father and brother. And like them, he only recognized the harm when it touched his own family. But unlike them, he's chosen to act. I'm sorry about your grandson, I say, and mean it. Don't be sorry. Be effective. The old man's eyes harden. Your father and brother, they know exactly what Carlton is doing. They've known for years. My father sits on the board, I acknowledge. I discovered that recently. Then you know what's at stake. The Howard name, the family fortune, the legal dynasty, it's all built on poison. He coughs, a wet, rattling sound. I don't have long. Cancer. The same kind that took my grandson. Poetic justice, I suppose. A door slams somewhere below us. The man stiffens. You need to leave now. He stands quickly. Take the back stairs. Don't trust anyone, especially. Footsteps thunder up the main stairwell. The man shoves me toward a side door. Go. I run through the dark hallway, finding the emergency exit just as voices echo from the office. My heart hammers dangerously in my chest as I take the stairs as quickly as my body allows, bursting out into the alley. I don't stop moving until I reach my car, breathing heavily, fumbling with my medication. My phone shows 3 missed calls from Richard. As I catch my breath, it rings again. Where are you? He demands. Out working, I manage to say between deep breaths. Why? We need to talk. Meet me at Harrison's bar now. Harrison's bar that evening. 20 minutes later, I slide into a booth across from my brother. He looks unusually disheveled, his perfect appearance showing cracks for the first time since I can remember. The invincible older brother of my childhood suddenly looks all of his 57 years. Someone's been accessing Carlton's financial records, he says without preamble. Internal documents are missing. You wouldn't know anything about that, would you? I meet his gaze steadily. Why would I? Cut the act, Dorothy. Carolyn confessed everything. My blood runs cold. Is she okay? She's fine, scared, but fine. He rubs his face, the gesture reminding me painfully of our father. Do you have any idea what you're doing? The people you're dealing with. Do you? I pull out my phone, play the recording from earlier. 3-year-old children dying of cancer, Richard. Your client is importing toxic waste from overseas, and you're helping them. It's not that simple. Seems pretty simple to me. These companies provide thousands of jobs, support entire communities. If they go down, children are dying, I interrupt, my voice rising despite the pain in my chest. Lower your voice, he hisses, leaning forward. For a moment, he looks frightened, an expression I've never seen on my confident, successful brother. Listen to me very carefully. There's still time to stop this. Delete your footage, forget what you've seen. Please. Or what? His expression hardens. Or I can't protect you. I don't need your protection. I need you to do the right thing. The right thing? He laughs bitterly, running a hand through his graying hair. The right thing is protecting our family. Dad's firm would collapse if this gets out. Everything he's built was built on blood money. Richard slams his hand on the table. Damn it, Dorothy. This isn't one of your little documentaries. These people, they make problems disappear permanently. I lean forward, meeting his gaze. Is that a threat? It's a warning from your brother who loves you. He stands up, placing a hand on my shoulder. The gesture, seemingly affectionate, carries the weight of 5 decades of complicated history. You have 24 hours to hand over everything you have. After that, he shakes his head. Just do the right thing. As he walks away, my phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number. Your source from the office building is dead. Heart attack. You're next. Dorothy's apartment that night. I call Michael immediately after receiving the threatening text. They're closing in, I say when he answers. I need to release the documentary now. Not yet. If we release this wrong, they'll bury it. Trust me, he pauses. Come to my office first thing tomorrow. Bring everything you have. We'll do this right. After we hang up, I sit in my darkened apartment, the silence broken only by the ticking of the grandfather clock that once belonged to my grandmother, a reminder of generations past and future. I think about my mother's words. Truth has a cost. But lies cost more in the end. I take my medication, then methodically begin securing my evidence. I copy all my files to multiple drives, send one to Patricia, another to a secure cloud account. Then I sit down at my computer and begin editing. If anything happens to me, the world will know why. My phone buzzes. Richard again. 24 hours, Dorothy. Clock's ticking. A memory surfaces. Richard at 10, me at 7, playing hide and seek. Clock's ticking, Dory. He called, using the nickname only he was allowed to use. Better find a good hiding place. Back then, he'd been my protector, defending me from neighborhood bullies, helping me with math homework. When did we become strangers? When did success become more important than truth? The knock on my door comes at 3 a.m. I freeze in front of my editing screen, heart pounding. Dorothy? It's Carolyn. Please let me in. I check the peephole before opening the door. My sister-in-law stands there, mascara streaked down her face. They know, she whispers, rushing inside. They know everything. Richard has been on the phone all night. They're planning something. Slow down. I lock the door behind her. What exactly did you hear? Carlton's CEO called an emergency board meeting. Richard said. She wraps her arms around herself. He said they're handling the situation permanently. Did he mention the man from the office building? They made it look like a heart attack, Dorothy. Her eyes widen as she glances at my blood pressure monitor on the table. Oh God, they know about your condition. What if they... Breathe, Carolyn. I guide her to the couch, though my own pulse is racing dangerously. Did Richard send you here? No. He doesn't know I'm here. She clutches my arm. There's something else. Your father. He's not just profiting from Carlton, he's been orchestrating everything. The waste importation, the cover-ups, all of it. The revelation hits like a physical blow. How long? Years. Since before his stroke. That's what caused it. I think the stress, the guilt. He's not the man Richard thinks he is. She pulls out her phone, shows me an email chain. They're all connected. The law firm, the waste disposal, the shell companies. Does my mother know? I don't think so. Carolyn's voice drops. But Dorothy, the dinner tomorrow night. It's not just a dinner. They're planning to announce Richard as Carlton's new legal director. They're bringing him inside. My laptop pings with an email notification from Michael. Footage needs to air tomorrow. No later. I have to finish editing, I say, turning back to my computer. Let me help. Carolyn sits down beside me. For my daughters, I want them to know there's still some justice in the world. We worked through the night, piecing together interviews, documents, and financial records. As dawn breaks, my phone buzzes with a text from my mother. Your father knows you have sensitive documents. Please come home. We can talk about this. Don't reply, Carolyn warns. They're trying to locate you. By noon, the documentary is ready. I send copies to Michael, Patricia, and 3 major news networks. Then I call Margaret at the EPA. It's happening today, I tell her. Have your team ready. Be careful, she replies. 2 of my investigators were followed this morning. I turn to Carolyn. You should go home. It's not safe for you here. It's not safe anywhere. She stands up, wincing as she stretches her back. But Richard will wonder where I am. As if summoned, my phone lights up with his name. Where's my wife? His voice is cold. How should I know? Cut the act. Her car has been parked outside your building all night. This is your last chance, Dorothy. The dinner's in 6 hours. Bring everything you have. We can fix this. Like you fixed the whistleblower? A long pause follows. That wasn't us, Dorothy. We didn't. He sighs. Just come to dinner, please. For Mom's sake. After he hangs up, Carolyn touches my shoulder. What are you going to do? I look at my laptop, where the finished documentary waits to expose decades of corruption and death, then at my phone, showing the time of tonight's family dinner. The decision crystallizes in my mind. I'm going to do both. Dorothy, no. It's too dangerous. They'll be distracted at dinner. It's the perfect time to release everything. I start gathering my equipment. But first we need to get you somewhere safe. I'm not leaving you alone. You have to. Your daughters come first. I hand her a burner phone. I'll text you when it's done. If you don't hear from me by midnight. She hugs me fiercely. Be careful. After she leaves, I call Patricia. Everything's ready, she says before I can speak. 3 networks are standing by. Michael has his contacts at the international press primed. We just need your signal. I think about my father's face when he realizes his own daughter brought down his empire, about Richard's reaction when his perfect world crumbles. I think about my 54 years of trying to make them see me, respect me, only to discover they've been part of the problem I've spent my life fighting. 8:30 p.m., I say. Release everything. What about you? I look at my reflection in the window, straightening my shoulders. The woman staring back looks tired but determined, silver threading through her dark hair, lines of experience etched around her eyes, but with a purpose that transcends appearance or age. I'll be having dinner with my family. My phone buzzes one final time. A message from an unknown number. Your father's study. Top drawer. The proof you really need. I take a deep breath, checking the time. 5 hours until dinner. 5 hours until I destroy everything my family has built. Time to set the table. I whisper to my reflection. Hope they're hungry for truth. Family stayed that evening. The security guard at my father's gate barely glances at me as I drive through. 8:15 p.m. 15 minutes until everything changes. My mother meets me at the door, her face lined with worry. Dorothy, thank God. She hugs me tightly, whispering, whatever's happening, we can fix this as a family. I look at her, really look at her, and see not just my mother, but Helen Howard, a woman in her 70s who has lived through decades of compromise and silence. What will tonight's revelations do to her? For a moment, I waver. Mom, I say softly, I love you. Remember that. The dining room buzzes with conversation. Richard stands with Carlton's CO, Robert Williams, their laughter echoing off the walls. My father holds court at the head of the table from his wheelchair, commanding attention despite his physical limitations. The stroke may have weakened his body, but not his presence. Ah, the prodigal daughter returns, he announces as I enter. Perfect timing. Robert was just asking about your creative pursuits. Documentaries, right? Robert's smile doesn't reach his eyes. Fascinating field, though I hear your latest project might need some fact-checking. 8:22 p.m. My phone vibrates silently in my pocket. Patricia, confirming the networks are ready. Actually, I say, accepting a glass of wine from the server. I'd love your input on some of my findings. Richard's glass freezes halfway to his lips. Dorothy, my father warns, his knuckles whitening around the arms of his wheelchair. Perhaps this isn't the time. I look around the ornate dining room, the crystal chandelier, the original oil paintings, the antique furniture passed down through generations. All of it purchased with money made defending companies like Carlton. All of it tainted. When is the time, Dad? After more children die? After you've buried all the evidence in your study's top drawer? The room falls silent. My father's face hardens, a mask of authority I've known all my life. Excuse us, everyone. Dorothy, my office. Now, 8:27 p.m. I follow him down the hallway, Richard close behind. The study door clicks shut behind us. What do you think you're doing? My father demands, wheeling himself behind his massive oak desk, the same desk where he once reviewed my college applications, where he signed the checks for my first camera, where he apparently orchestrated environmental crimes for profit. Wondering why you never told me you were on Carlton's board, I moved toward his desk. 3 years, Dad. All those times you dismissed my career. You were protecting your investment. You don't understand business. I understand right and wrong. I reach for the top drawer, the one the anonymous message mentioned. Richard grabs my wrist. Don't. 8:30 p.m. My phone buzzes again. I smile. Too late. The study door bursts open. My mother stands there, face pale. Frank, you need to see this. All of you. We follow her to the living room, where the massive TV displays breaking news. Exclusive. Corporate giant Carlton Industries linked to mass environmental violations, deaths. Robert storms in. What is this? My footage plays across the screen. The whistleblower's testimony, Margaret's documents, Carolyn's financial records. Then my father's name appears, followed by evidence of his direct involvement. You little fool, my father whispers, his face ashen. Do you have any idea what you've done? Destroyed your empire, I say, pulling open my phone, showing the viewer counts climbing. It's streaming everywhere. International networks are picking it up. Robert grabs his phone. Get me legal now. But his face tells me he knows it's too late. How could you? Richard advances on me, looking less like a successful attorney and more like a frightened boy. Our family. You mean the family that profits from poisoning children? That family? I gesture to the screen where images of sick children appear. My mother sinks into a chair, her hand covering her mouth as photographs of victims appear, including the whistleblower's 3-year-old grandson. Frank, she whispers, turning to my father. Tell me you didn't know. Is silence is answer enough? The front door slams open. FBI agents pour in, followed by EPA officials. Margaret Matthews leads them, holding a warrant. Robert Williams, Frank Howard, she announces. You're under investigation for environmental violations, corporate fraud, and conspiracy. You can't prove anything, Robert snarls. I pull out the contents of my father's desk drawer, documents I'd photographed hours earlier while everyone prepared for dinner. Actually, they can. Dad kept meticulous records. Richard stares at me, realization dawning. You were never here for dinner. No, I hand the documents to Margaret. I was here for justice. As agents begin reading rights and conducting searches, my mother approaches me. Her face is lined with grief, but there's something else there too, a kind of liberation. I should have stopped him, she says quietly. I saw the signs, but I chose not to look closer. Mrs. Howard. An agent interrupts. We'll need to ask you some questions. My father's voice cuts through the chaos as they lead him out. Dorothy, you'll regret this. Everything I did for this family. No, Dad, I say, watching as they escort him to a waiting car, a frail man in a wheelchair who once seemed immortal to me. You did it for yourself. Outside, news fans are already arriving. Michael stands among the reporters, giving me a subtle nod. My phone buzzes with a text from Carolyn. watching the news. Are you okay? Before I can reply, Richard grabs my shoulder. They're arresting our father, and you're texting? This will destroy us all. I shrug off his hand. Maybe we needed destroying. As camera flashes light up the night and reporters shout questions, I think about the woman from my first interview pointing at her poisoned backyard, about the whistleblower who died trying to expose the truth, about Carolyn's daughters who will now grow up in a cleaner world. No, I whisper, watching my father's car drive away, my blood pressure finally, for once, steady and calm. We needed saving. Epilogue 3 months later. The prison visiting room smells of industrial cleaner and stale coffee. My father sits across from me, orange jumpsuit replacing his usual tailored suits, looking older than I remembered. The stroke and the scandal have aged him years in just weeks. I wasn't sure you'd come, he says, his once booming voice now thin and uncertain. Neither was I. He gestures at the newspaper between us. The headline reads, Carlton Industries executives face criminal charges. Whistleblower documentary sparks global reform. You did what I never could, he says quietly, surprising me. You chose integrity over profit. It wasn't a choice, Dad. It was the only right thing to do. He nods slowly, his hands fidgeting with the edge of the table. Your brother's testimony. It's going to help a lot of families get justice. Richard finally found his conscience. Better late than never, I say, studying this diminished version of the man who once loomed so large in my life. Like father, like daughter, he attempts a smile. You're both stubborn as hell once you choose a path. A guard walks past, keys jingling. That's what I always admired about you, even when I couldn't say it. Your certainty. Through the window, I can see Carolyn in the waiting room, her twin daughters beside her, absorbed in their books. Richard sits with them, reviewing legal documents, now working to help Carlton's victims instead of silencing them. My mother stands by the vending machine, her back straighter than I've seen it in years. I watched your documentary last night, my father says, all of it, even the parts about me. He wipes his eyes with a gnarled hand. Those children. I told myself it wasn't my responsibility, that I was just handling the legal side. Lies are easy when they're profitable. Yes, I say, remembering all the lies I told myself too, that my family's approval didn't matter, that my work was enough, that loneliness was the price of integrity. He places his hand on the glass between us. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it, but I want you to know I was wrong about you. About everything. My phone vibrates. Michael texting about our new investigation into similar corporations. We've already uncovered 3 more Carlton-like operations. The network loved your pitch, my father says, nodding at my phone. I saw the announcement. A whole series exposing corporate corruption. Someone has to keep telling the truth, and you're the perfect person for it. He straightens in his chair. I'm testifying next week against everyone. No more protecting the guilty. Through the window, I see my mother approaching Richard and Carolyn. She waves at me, and for the first time in years, her smile reaches her eyes. Your mother's different now, my father observes. Stronger. You did that too. She did it herself. We all make our own choices. Choices. He nods at the newspaper again. The families, the ones Carlton hurt, are they getting help? The settlement Richard negotiated will fund medical care for everyone affected, and the EPA's new regulations mean it can't happen again. Good. He clears his throat. I have something for you. I asked your mother to bring it. He slides an envelope across the table. Open it. Inside is a letter dated 15 years ago. My own handwriting fills the page. My first pitch for a documentary about local pollution. You kept this? It was the first time you stood up to me, told me money wasn't everything. His voice cracks. I should have listened then. A guard approaches. Time's up. My father stands, hands shaking. Dorothy, I know I don't have the right to ask, but will you come back? I think about the families finally getting justice, about Richard's transformation, about my mother's newfound strength. Most of all, I think about my own journey, from the desperate need for family approval to the peace that comes with standing in your truth. Yes, I say, not for who you were, but for who you're trying to become. In the waiting room, Carolyn introduces me to her daughters properly for the first time. The girls are 14, bright and curious, asking about my documentaries with none of the dismissiveness their father once showed. "This is your Aunt Dorothy," Carolyn tells them, "the one who taught us all about courage." As we walk out, I glance back at the visiting room. My father watches through the window, pressing his hand against the glass. I press mine back briefly before turning away. Outside, the spring air feels clean and fresh. News vans still camp nearby, hoping for comments about the ongoing investigations, but they don't matter. What matters is Richard holding his daughter's hand, finally understanding what truly needed protecting. My mother standing tall, no longer afraid to speak truth to power, Carolyn planning to testify about other corporate crimes she's witnessed, and me. I have a new documentary to film, more truth to tell, more justice to fight for. Let's go, I say to my family. We've got work to do. Sometimes the hardest truth to tell is the one that costs you everything. But sometimes, in losing everything, you find what matters most.